The rain hammered the runway outside Fort Ashburn like a warning from God. Captain Ethan Cole stood alone beneath the floodlights, staring at the arriving military transport through exhausted eyes. Midnight storms rolled across coastal Georgia, covering the airfield in silver fog and cold wind. Most officers had already gone home. Nobody expected survivors from Operation Black Torrent. Officially, the mission ended 48 hours earlier. Officially, every member of Recon Team Ghost was dead. Cole rubbed his jaw and glanced toward the operations building where classified reports waited on his desk. 3 signed casualty confirmations, 1 sealed recommendation for posthumous honors, 1 carefully crafted lie. The cargo ramp slowly lowered. At first, nobody moved. Then a figure appeared through the rain. A woman, bareheaded, bleeding, walking. Sergeant Olivia Bennett stepped down from the aircraft carrying a wounded Navy SEAL across her shoulders. The entire airfield froze. She moved slowly across the wet concrete, boots dragging through puddles darkened by blood. Another SEAL hung from a makeshift harness strapped against her back. A third man leaned against her side, barely conscious, his arm wrapped around her neck while she supported his weight. Beside her walked a black German shepherd named Ranger. The dog looked almost feral. Mud covered his fur, one ear bled freely, his teeth stayed exposed as he scanned every rooftop and vehicle surrounding the runway. Olivia never looked up. She kept walking. Captain Cole felt the blood drain from his face. That was impossible. He had watched satellite footage himself. The valley near Kandahar had been sealed under mortar fire and collapsing cliffs. Air support had been diverted after direct authorization from Central Command. Extraction approval disappeared. Communications died. The mission had been buried. And yet Olivia Bennett kept walking toward him through the storm carrying 3 living men. Lieutenant Marcus Hale was first to react. "Medic teams now," he shouted across the runway. Emergency crews sprinted from the hangars. Floodlights illuminated the wounded SEALs one by one. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Mercer had severe abdominal trauma held together by field sutures and duct tape. Petty Officer Daniel Brooks suffered a collapsed lung, stabilized with improvised drainage tubing. Lieutenant Noah Grant's left leg hung in bloody splints fashioned from broken rifle parts. None of them should have survived, not for 2 days, not inside Taliban territory, not without extraction. Olivia finally stopped 10 feet from Captain Cole. Rain streamed down her pale face. Her eyes looked hollow. Not frightened, not emotional, just empty from exhaustion. "You told them we were dead," she whispered. The words struck harder than gunfire. Cole forced his expression flat. "Sergeant Bennett, your team was declared lost after enemy escalation. I followed protocol." Olivia laughed quietly. It sounded broken. Protocol. She slowly lowered Noah Grant onto a stretcher before turning toward the captain. "For 36 hours we begged for extraction." Nobody spoke. Only rain. Only thunder. Only the distant spinning rotors of helicopters parked nearby. Olivia continued, "We transmitted coordinates every hour. We used emergency frequencies. We popped flares. We marked positions with infrared strobes." Her voice hardened. "You heard us." Captain Cole said nothing, because denying it would sound worse. Lieutenant Hale stepped closer. "Captain, what is she talking about?" Cole ignored him. Instead, he stared directly at Olivia. "You're injured, Sergeant. Medical evaluation comes first." "No." Her answer came instantly. The German shepherd growled low beside her. Olivia swayed slightly but remained standing. "You sent us there knowing we were bait." The sentence spread across the runway like poison. Several soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. One medic froze beside a stretcher. Captain Cole's jaw tightened. "That information is classified." Olivia stepped forward. "Ryan Mercer nearly died because you cut our air cover." Another step. "Noah Grant lost half his blood waiting for helicopters that never came." Another. "And Daniel Brooks stopped breathing 3 separate times while I carried him through mountain passes in freezing rain." She stood inches from him now. "You signed our death certificates before we even stopped fighting." The captain lowered his voice. "Careful, Sergeant." "Or what?" Lightning flashed behind her. For one brief moment, Olivia Bennett looked less like a medic and more like judgment itself. You'll finish the job yourself? The silence became unbearable. Then Chief Mercer suddenly coughed from his stretcher. Every head turned. The wounded SEAL struggled upright despite medics trying to restrain him. "Don't let him spin this," Mercer rasped. Blood stained his lips. "We called command 17 times. He pointed weakly toward Captain Cole. "And every single time, that man ignored us." The runway erupted into whispers. Captain Cole felt control slipping away. Fast. Too fast. Then Ranger barked, sharp, violent. The dog suddenly lunged toward a black SUV approaching the runway entrance. Olivia's face changed instantly. Fear finally appeared in her eyes. Not fear for herself, fear of recognition. She grabbed Lieutenant Hale's sleeve. "They found us already," she whispered. Hale frowned. "Who found you?" Olivia stared at the SUV headlights cutting through the rain. "The people Captain Cole works for." Lieutenant Hale drew his sidearm the moment the black SUVs stopped beside the runway. Rain slammed against the concrete harder now, reducing visibility beneath the floodlights. Engines remained running. Windows stayed dark. Nobody stepped outside. Olivia Bennett backed slowly toward the wounded SEALs. Ranger stood directly beside her leg, muscles tense, teeth exposed. Captain Ethan Cole immediately recognized the vehicles. And that terrified him, because those SUVs were never supposed to appear on base. Not openly, not here, not tonight. "Everybody stand down," Cole ordered sharply. Lieutenant Hale ignored him. "With respect, sir, unidentified vehicles just entered a secured military runway." "They're authorized." Olivia laughed again. That same exhausted, hollow sound. "No," she whispered. "They're cleaners." The rear passenger door opened. A tall man stepped into the rain, wearing civilian clothing beneath a dark tactical jacket. Mid-40s, athletic build, calm expression, former military. Olivia recognized the posture immediately. So did Ranger. The dog snarled violently. The man raised both hands peacefully while approaching. "Easy," he called out. "Nobody wants trouble." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Victor Kane." Lieutenant Hale glanced toward her. "You know him?" Olivia never looked away from the approaching contractor. "He was in Kandahar 6 months ago, CIA liaison officially. Unofficially, he handled black site recoveries and deniable operations." Kane smiled slightly. "You always were observant, Sergeant Bennett. Stay away from my team." Captain Cole stepped forward quickly. "That's enough. Mr. Kane is attached to a classified oversight division." Hale stared at him. "Sir, why would classified oversight arrive before medical evacuation?" Cole didn't answer. "Because there was no answer that wouldn't expose everything." Victor Kane stopped 10 feet away. Rain rolled off his jacket while his eyes calmly assessed Olivia. "You look terrible," he said. Olivia's expression hardened. "You left us there." Kane shrugged. "You survived." Those 2 words changed the atmosphere instantly. Every soldier on the runway felt it. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't bureaucracy. Someone had intentionally abandoned Recon Team Ghost. Chief Mercer slowly pushed himself upright on the stretcher despite obvious agony. "You son of a bitch," he growled. 2 medics tried stopping him. Mercer shoved them away. "You cut our extraction birds." Victor Kane remained calm. "The mission evolved." "No," Olivia interrupted coldly. "The mission was fake from the beginning." Thunder cracked overhead. Olivia took a slow breath before continuing. "You sent us into the valley to flush out witnesses." Captain Cole snapped immediately. Sergeant Bennett stopped talking, but she kept going. There were no Taliban leadership meetings. Several nearby officers exchanged confused looks. Olivia pointed toward Kane. The valley wasn't hiding insurgents. It was hiding American weapons. Silence. Absolute silence. Even the rain seemed quieter. Victor Kane's smile finally disappeared. Olivia continued. Crates of American rifles, anti-air missiles, medical supplies, radios. Everything marked as destroyed or stolen during transport. Lieutenant Hale stared at Captain Cole. "Sir, what the hell is she talking about?" Cole's face remained expressionless, but sweat mixed with rain along his forehead. Olivia looked directly at Hale. "They're selling weapons to both sides." One of the younger soldiers nearby whispered softly, My God! Victor Kane sighed. You should have died in the mountains, Sergeant. The sentence landed like a gunshot. Captain Cole immediately stepped toward him. Victor? Too late. Everybody heard it. Lieutenant Hale slowly lowered his weapon toward Kane. You just admitted operational sabotage against American personnel. Kane's eyes hardened instantly. No, he replied calmly. I acknowledged operational disappointment. Then everything exploded. Gunfire erupted from the SUVs. The windshield shattered beside Hale's head. Soldiers screamed. Floodlights burst overhead. Chaos swallowed the runway. Victor Kane moved first. Professional. Fast. He grabbed Captain Cole and dragged him behind concrete barriers as contractors opened suppressive fire. Olivia tackled a medic to the ground milliseconds before bullets ripped through the stretcher behind them. Ranger launched forward like a missile. One contractor barely turned before the dog hit him full force. Screaming followed instantly. Return fire, Hale shouted. Military police scattered across the runway while rounds tore through fuel carts and supply crates. Olivia crawled toward Chief Mercer. The wounded SEAL had fallen beside the stretcher, clutching his abdomen. You hit, she shouted. Mercer shook his head. Not mine. A dead medic lay nearby. Olivia froze briefly. 20 years old, maybe. Wrong place, wrong night. Another casualty caused by secrets. Gunfire intensified. The contractors weren't trying to escape. They were trying to erase witnesses. Victor Kane leaned around cover and fired controlled shots toward the military police. American against American. Olivia felt something inside her finally break. No more survival, no more running, no more carrying dead weight for men hiding behind classified orders. She grabbed the fallen medic's rifle. Lieutenant Hale saw her chamber around. You know how to use that? Olivia's eyes looked empty again. I learned in Kandahar. Then she stood into live fire and started hunting. The first contractor died before he understood Olivia Bennett was moving toward him. She crossed the flooded runway through smoke and shattered light with terrifying focus. Rain soaked her borrowed rifle while bullets snapped across the concrete around her. Ranger reached the man first. The German shepherd slammed into his chest, dragging him backward into standing water. Olivia fired once. Clean. Efficient. No hesitation. Lieutenant Hale watched in stunned silence. That was not how combat medics moved. That was how survivors moved. Push left flank, Hale shouted toward military police pinned behind cargo containers. The contractors answered with disciplined, suppressive fire. These were not mercenaries hired from back alleys. These men trained professionally. Former Rangers, former Marines, maybe worse. Captain Ethan Cole remained behind cover beside Victor Kane, breathing heavily. This was supposed to stay quiet, Cole hissed. Kane reloaded calmly. It would have if Bennett stayed dead. Cole glanced toward Olivia, moving through smoke like a ghost. She knows too much. No, Kane corrected. She remembers too much. Another explosion erupted beside the control tower. Fuel ignited. Orange fire reflected across the wet runway. Olivia dropped beside Petty Officer Daniel Brooks, who struggled to breathe through worsening chest trauma. Blood bubbled beneath his field dressing. Not good. Very not good. Stay awake, she ordered. Brooks coughed violently. You always say that. Olivia ripped open emergency supplies from a fallen medic bag. Around them, bullets continued ripping across the airfield. She ignored everything, focused only on saving him. Her hands remained steady despite exhaustion, despite grief, despite rage. Lieutenant Hale crawled beside her. We need to move. Olivia inserted a decompression needle into Brooks' chest. Air hissed free instantly. Brooks inhaled sharply. Relief flooded his face. You should be dead, Hale muttered quietly while watching her work. Olivia barely looked up. People keep telling me that. Gunfire erupted closer now. The contractors were advancing aggressively. Military police started falling back toward the hangars. Victor Kane saw it immediately. They're collapsing, he said calmly. Captain Cole nodded. Good, but Kane's expression stayed cold. No, it means Hale still controls the command building. Cole frowned. So Bennett reaches communications if they retreat there. Cole's face paled, because Olivia still carried the real threat. Not testimony, not survival. Evidence. Kane grabbed Cole's shoulder. Where is her pack? Cole froze, then realized. The waterproof field pack Olivia carried from Kandahar was gone. Not on her back, not beside the wounded seals, gone. Kane's eyes darkened instantly. She hid it before arriving. Cole swallowed hard. What's inside? Victor Kane stared directly at him. Enough evidence to destroy careers, governments, intelligence contracts, and half the people funding this war. Meanwhile, Olivia finished stabilizing Brooks. Lieutenant Hale finally asked the question burning through everyone's mind. What exactly did you find in that valley? Olivia hesitated, then answered quietly. A pipeline. Another burst of gunfire echoed nearby. She continued anyway. American weapons disappear during overseas transport. Official reports blame insurgent raids or lost cargo. Then private contractors recover insurance money while replacement shipments get approved. Hale stared at her. And the missing weapons? Get sold directly into black markets across Afghanistan and Syria. Brooks laughed weakly despite his injuries. We spent years chasing weapons supplied by our own side. Olivia nodded slowly, and every time combat escalated, defense contracts increased. More weapons, more drones, more funding. Lieutenant Hale felt sick. You're saying Americans prolonged the war intentionally? Olivia looked toward Captain Cole. Some Americans. Hale followed her eyes. Captain Cole immediately looked away. That alone confirmed everything. Ranger suddenly growled. Olivia reacted instantly. Down. A sniper round shattered the concrete barrier behind them. Another, then another. Professional spacing, professional timing. Victor Kane had deployed Overwatch shooters. Military police started dropping. Panic spread fast. One young private tried sprinting toward cover. The sniper shot him through the throat. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Another kid, another unnecessary death. Lieutenant Hale grabbed her arm. We can't hold the runway. Olivia nodded. Then we stopped defending it. What? She pointed toward the operations building. They want witnesses dead before command outside Georgia learns what happened. Another sniper shot cracked overhead. Olivia continued, so we forced this public. How? Olivia finally looked directly at him. Broadcast everything. Hale blinked. The evidence? The recordings, mission logs, coordinates, contractor manifests. Her voice turned deadly calm. If this stays classified, they bury us. She chambered another round. But if the whole country sees it, understanding hit him instantly. No cover-up survives national exposure, no quiet executions, no sealed reports. Victor Kane suddenly shouted from across the runway. Olivia! She turned slowly. Kane stepped from cover with a pistol lowered casually at his side. Rain streamed down his face. You really think Washington cares? He asked. Olivia said nothing. Kane walked closer through drifting smoke. You think senators don't know? Another step. You think defense executives don't know? Another. You think wars continue accidentally? Lieutenant Hale aimed directly at him. Stop moving. Kane ignored the warning. His eyes stayed fixed on Olivia. You survived because someone made a mistake. That's all this is. An accounting error. Olivia's grip tightened around the rifle. Kane spread his arms slightly. You know what happens after tonight? Another war, another contract, another generation shipped overseas. He smiled faintly. Nothing changes. Olivia answered softly. You're wrong. Kane tilted his head. Am I? Olivia stared at the terrified soldiers hiding behind barriers, at the wounded men she carried through hell, at the blood washing across American concrete beneath American rain, then back at Kane. Yes, she whispered, because this time survivors came home alive. Lightning exploded across the Georgia sky as Olivia Bennett opened fire. Victor Kane dove sideways behind a fuel truck while bullets shattered the runway beside him. Contractors immediately returned suppressive fire toward Olivia and Lieutenant Hale. The airfield disappeared beneath noise and chaos. Ranger sprinted forward through smoke. Another sniper shot cracked overhead. This time the dog moved before the sound finished echoing. He slammed into a contractor hidden near the maintenance fence. The man screamed. Olivia never looked. She was already moving. "Get Brooks inside," she shouted. Lieutenant Hale grabbed the wounded SEAL and dragged him toward the operations building, while military police covered their retreat. Chief Ryan Mercer limped behind them, clutching his bloody abdomen. Noah Grant remained unconscious on a stretcher, pushed by two terrified medics. Captain Ethan Cole watched everything collapse around him. The operation was unraveling too fast, too publicly, too violently, and Olivia Bennett refused to die. Victor Kane crouched beside the burning fuel truck and keyed a radio. "Terminate containment protocol," he ordered calmly. A voice answered instantly. "Confirmed?" Kane's eyes followed Olivia disappearing into the command building. "Confirmed. Total burn authorization." Captain Cole turned toward him sharply. "What does that mean?" Kane didn't answer immediately. Then another explosion shook the base, far larger this time. The western hangar erupted into flames. Fuel reserves ignited. Shockwaves rolled across the runway. Soldiers scattered in panic. Sirens screamed through Fort Ashburn. Cole stared in horror. "You're destroying the entire base." Victor Kane looked genuinely confused. "You thought this operation ended with witnesses?" Inside the operations building, Olivia kicked the security door shut behind them. The wounded SEALs collapsed against walls, while Hale locked internal barricades. Emergency alarms flashed red through dark corridors. Smoke already seeped beneath doorframes. "We don't have long," Hale said. Olivia nodded. She moved directly toward the communications room. Every step hurt now. Her body was finally failing. 3 days carrying wounded men through Afghanistan. Hours fighting contractors, no sleep, barely any blood left. But anger kept her moving. That and memory. She remembered Ryan Mercer screaming after shrapnel tore through his stomach. She remembered Daniel Brooks choking on blood while helicopters ignored their calls. She remembered Noah Grant begging her to leave him behind. And she remembered Captain Ethan Cole calmly signing death reports while they still breathed. No, she would not let them erase this. Lieutenant Hale opened the communication center. Rows of monitors flickered inside. Satellite uplinks, internal command channels, emergency broadcast systems. Olivia immediately dropped into a chair. "What exactly are we sending?" Hale asked. Olivia stared at the keyboard. "Everything." She reached beneath the console, pulled loose a hidden ventilation grate, and removed the waterproof field pack. Hale's eyes widened. "You hid it here." Before landing, Olivia unzipped the pack carefully. Inside rested hard drives, photographs, military manifests, audio recordings, and satellite coordinates copied from the cave system near Kandahar. Proof. Enough proof to burn governments. Mercer slowly approached despite obvious pain. "You carried all that through the mountains?" Olivia glanced at him. "I carried you too." The SEAL fell silent. Outside, automatic gunfire rattled through the rain. The contractors reached the building. Lieutenant Hale checked his ammunition. "We need to hurry." Olivia connected the first hard drive. Folders appeared instantly across the monitor. Shipping logs, encrypted payments, private contractor agreements, weapons inventories marked destroyed. Every file traced directly toward shell companies tied to American defense executives. Hale stared at the screen. "This is treason." "No," Olivia whispered. Her eyes looked dead again. "It's business." The lights suddenly flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the room. Emergency generators kicked on seconds later. Red backup lighting filled the corridors. Ranger growled low beside the doorway. Olivia froze. "They're inside." Gunfire erupted downstairs. Military police screamed. Mercer grabbed a rifle and moved beside Hale. Brooks struggled upright despite chest wounds. Even Noah Grant forced himself conscious enough to reach for a pistol. Olivia looked at them carefully. 3 wounded SEALs barely standing, still ready to fight, still refusing to quit. Her throat tightened briefly. Then the emotion disappeared. There would be time for grief later. Maybe. She turned back toward the computer. Satellite uplink active. Military channels connected. Public emergency systems accessible. Olivia uploaded everything simultaneously. Every command branch, every intelligence office, every major news network emergency contact. Lieutenant Hale stared at her. You're broadcasting classified material across civilian systems. Yes. You'll destroy careers. Olivia's fingers stopped over the keyboard. Then she looked directly at him. Good. Heavy footsteps thundered upstairs. The contractors found their floor. Victor Kane's voice echoed through the hallway. Olivia, Ranger barked violently. Kane sounded almost disappointed. You could have disappeared quietly, lived somewhere under another name. Olivia pressed enter. Upload progress bars exploded across the screens, files transferring, encrypted evidence spreading outward beyond containment. Beyond deletion, beyond control, Kane heard the computer tones instantly, his voice sharpened. What did you do? Olivia stood slowly. Rain hammered against the windows. Red emergency lights painted the room like blood. She picked up her rifle, then answered calmly. I made sure the whole country hears us before we die. Victor Kane opened fire through the doorway before anyone could answer. Glass exploded across the communication center. Lieutenant Hale fired back instantly while dragging Olivia behind overturned consoles. Ranger launched into the hallway like pure violence wrapped in black fur. Screams followed. Then gunshots. Then silence. The upload continued. 38%. Mercer crouched beside the doorway, clutching his bleeding abdomen. How long? He shouted. Olivia checked the screen. 2 minutes, maybe. That's 2 minutes too long. The contractors attacked again. Flashbangs rolled through the doorway. Hale kicked one back instinctively before it detonated in the hall. The blast shattered lights and knocked 2 contractors sideways. Mercer finished them both. The wounded SEAL barely looked human anymore. Blood soaked his uniform. His hands shook violently, but he kept firing. Outside the operations building, Fort Ashburn descended into full panic. Burning hangars collapsed beneath black smoke. Military police exchanged gunfire with contractors near the control tower. Emergency vehicles raced blindly through rain and debris. Nobody understood who controlled the base anymore. Inside the chaos, Captain Ethan Cole sat alone inside a dark armored SUV. Hands trembling, heart racing. Victor Kane's people no longer followed orders. They followed cleanup protocol, which meant eventually they would eliminate him too. Cole stared at the fires consuming the base. This was never supposed to happen. The original agreement seemed simple: manipulate extraction priorities, redirect failed weapons shipments, maintain plausible deniability. Nobody innocent gets hurt. But innocent people always died. That became the real business model. And Olivia Bennett survived long enough to expose it. Cole closed his eyes. He remembered the moment he marked Recon Team Ghost KIA. He remembered hearing Olivia's exhausted voice begging for evacuation, and he remembered ignoring her. Because promotion mattered more, now the entire system burned around him. Back upstairs, Noah Grant suddenly spoke from the floor beside the window. They're repositioning. Olivia crawled beside him. The SEAL pointed toward the eastern courtyard. More black SUVs, more armed contractors. At least 20 now. Too many. Lieutenant Hale saw them too. We're not surviving this. Olivia remained calm. Yes, we are. How? She looked toward the rooftop access hallway. Because they think we're trapped. Another explosion shook the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. The upload reached 56%. Victor Kane's voice echoed again through the corridor. Olivia, listen carefully. Nobody answered. Kane continued anyway. The broadcast can still be stopped. Olivia laughed softly. No, it can't. You underestimate how much control exists above your clearance level. Olivia checked another progress bar. Files already reached civilian servers. Too late. She knew it. Kane knew it too. That frightened him. His voice hardened. Then this becomes recovery. Lieutenant Hale frowned. Recovery of what? Olivia answered quietly. Me. The realization hit instantly. They didn't just want her dead anymore. They wanted interrogation first. They needed to know what she remembered from Kandahar, from the caves, from the shipment routes. Mercer saw it on her face. What else did you find? Olivia hesitated, then she finally said it aloud. There's another operation inside the United States. Everyone froze. Even the gunfire downstairs suddenly sounded distant. Brooks stared at her. What kind of operation? Olivia's voice lowered. The shipments weren't just leaving America. She swallowed hard. Some stayed here. Lieutenant Hale slowly turned toward her. You're talking about domestic weapon cells? Olivia nodded. I overheard coordinates tied to ports in Louisiana and warehouses outside Chicago. Noah Grant cursed under his breath. Jesus Christ. They've been building private stockpiles for years, Olivia continued. Enough weapons to arm militias, contractors, extremist groups, whoever pays. Mercer looked sick. And nobody caught it? Olivia looked toward the burning runway outside. People caught pieces, then accidents happened. The room fell silent, not conspiracy anymore, not corruption anymore, something larger, something organized. Victor Kane suddenly shouted through the hallway. She told you about the stateside depots, didn't she? Nobody answered. Kane laughed once, cold, amused. That girl really did memorize everything. Lieutenant Hale aimed toward the doorway. Shut up. Kane ignored him. You know what happens now? Washington blames rogue contractors. A few executives disappear. Some generals retire quietly. Another step echoed closer. But the machine survives. Olivia finally stood, tired, bleeding, barely conscious, still dangerous. You keep saying that, she whispered. Kane appeared briefly at the far end of the corridor, weapon lowered, completely calm. Because it's true, Olivia looked directly at him. No, the upload hit 92%. She smiled for the first time all night. Tonight the machine gets dragged into daylight. Victor Kane's expression changed instantly, for the first time since arriving on base. He looked afraid, then every monitor inside the communications center flashed green simultaneously. Upload complete. Across America, classified files began appearing on military servers, federal databases, news networks, encrypted journalist feeds, and intelligence watchdog systems. Photos, audio, names, coordinates, everything. The truth escaped containment. Victor Kane stared at the screen, then quietly raised his rifle. All right, he said softly. Now everybody dies. Victor Kane fired first. The communications center erupted into violence. Bullets shredded monitors and exploded sparks across the dark room, while Olivia Bennett dove sideways behind overturned desks. Lieutenant Hale returned fire instantly, forcing contractors back into the hallway. Ranger attacked again. A contractor screamed as the German shepherd tore him to the floor outside the doorway. Then automatic gunfire drowned everything. The contractors pushed hard now. No caution. No restraint. The uploads finished. Containment failed, which meant witnesses no longer mattered. Only destruction. Move, Hale shouted. Olivia grabbed the hard drives while Mercer and Brooks covered the corridor. Noah Grant limped toward the rooftop hallway, using a broken rifle as a crutch. Smoke thickened around them. The building was burning. Victor Kane's people intended to erase Fort Ashburn completely. Another explosion ripped through the lower floors. The entire structure shook violently. Emergency lights flickered. Then half the building lost power. Olivia reached the stairwell first. Roof access, she ordered. Lieutenant Hale grabbed her arm. And after that? Olivia stared upward. Visibility. He frowned. What? If we disappear quietly, they control the story again. Another burst of gunfire echoed below. Olivia continued climbing. We need witnesses. The rooftop door exploded inward beneath Hale's kick. Cold rain slammed against them instantly. Wind howled across the burning base. Fort Ashburn looked like a war zone. Fuel fires spread across the runway. Military vehicles burned beside collapsed hangars. Distant sirens approached from outside the perimeter. Civilian authorities finally noticed something catastrophic happening inside the base. Good. Olivia moved toward the rooftop edge overlooking the airfield. Lieutenant Hale followed, then stopped cold. News helicopters. 3 of them, circling beyond the military perimeter, spotlights sweeping through smoke and rain. Olivia saw them too. A small, exhausted smile crossed her face. Perfect. Victor Kane emerged onto the rooftop seconds later with 6 armed contractors behind him. Rain soaked his tactical jacket while flames reflected in his eyes. You really think the media changes anything? He asked. Olivia slowly stood near the roof edge. Yes. Kane shook his head. You still believe America wants truth? Olivia glanced toward the circling helicopters. No, she answered honestly. I think Americans want survivors. The contractors spread outward. Professional containment formation. Mercer saw it immediately. They're boxing us in. Victor Kane kept his rifle lowered because he still wanted Olivia alive. Last chance, he said calmly. Give me the drives. Olivia held the waterproof pack tightly against her chest. No. You understand everyone around you dies because of that decision. Lieutenant Hale laughed bitterly. People already died because of yours. Kane ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on Olivia. You know what happens after exposure? Another step closer. Markets collapse. Another. Governments panic. Another. Foreign alliances fracture. Rain poured harder. Kane stopped 10 feet away. And eventually people decide stability matters more than truth. Olivia's voice stayed calm. That's why people like you always survive. Kane nodded slightly. Yes. Then she raised the hard drives. But not tonight, and threw them off the roof. Everyone froze. The drives crashed onto a lower emergency awning directly above a crowd of arriving civilian firefighters and county deputies rushing toward the building. Victor Kane's face changed instantly, pure fury. He raised his rifle. Ranger moved first. The dog slammed into Kane before he could fire. Gunshots exploded across the rooftop. Everything collapsed into chaos again. Mercer dropped one contractor before taking a round through his shoulder. Brooks tackled another man directly against the rooftop railing. Lieutenant Hale exchanged close-range fire beside the stairwell. Olivia sprinted toward the edge. Not away, toward the news helicopters. She grabbed an emergency flare from a rooftop safety case, ignited it. Bright red fire exploded against the storm. Then she raised it high above the burning base. Every news camera immediately locked onto her. The bloody medic standing atop a burning military installation, holding a flare beside armed contractors. America finally had visuals. Victor Kane saw the helicopters pivoting toward them. Saw cameras zooming closer, saw the moment secrecy died forever. He ripped Ranger away violently and aimed directly at Olivia. Enough, he roared. Olivia looked at him through rain and smoke, then calmly pointed toward the circling cameras. You lost. Kane fired. Lieutenant Hale tackled Olivia sideways milliseconds before the bullet struck. The round tore through Hale's chest instead. He collapsed hard beside her. Blood spread instantly beneath him. Olivia screamed his name. Kane raised the rifle again, then stopped. Military helicopters thundered overhead. Not news helicopters. Blackhawks, armed, fast, dozens. Victor Kane looked upward slowly. Floodlights illuminated the rooftop. Loudspeakers exploded through the storm. Federal task force, drop your weapons immediately. Kane's contractors hesitated. That hesitation killed them. Snipers positioned aboard the helicopters opened fire with terrifying precision. 3 contractors dropped instantly. The others threw weapons aside. Victor Kane remained standing. Rain poured across his face while helicopters circled overhead. He stared directly at Olivia Bennett, then smiled. Not afraid, not defeated, almost impressed. You really did it, he whispered. Olivia pressed shaking hands against Lieutenant Hale's chest wound. Blood soaked through her fingers. Stay with me, she begged. Hale coughed weakly. You broadcast everything? Yes. A faint smile crossed his face. Good. Victor Kane slowly lowered his rifle. Federal agents surrounded the rooftop within seconds. Weapons drawn, commands shouted, but Kane barely noticed. His eyes stayed fixed on Olivia. You think this ends corruption? He asked quietly. Olivia glared at him through tears and rain. No. Then she tightened pressure against Hale's wound. But now people finally know where to aim. Federal agents flooded the rooftop within seconds. Laser sights covered every contractor still breathing. Victor Kane stood perfectly still beneath pouring rain while helicopters circled overhead like predators. On your knees, agents screamed. Kane slowly complied. Calm, controlled, almost amused. Olivia Bennett ignored him completely. Her entire focus remained on Lieutenant Hale bleeding across the rooftop. Stay awake, her voice cracked for the first time all night. Hale tried smiling through blood. You always say that. Olivia pressed harder against the wound. Not good. The bullet entered high near the lung, internal bleeding severe. She needed a chest tube, a surgical kit, an operating room. Instead, she had rainwater, shaking hands, and 30 seconds before shock killed him. Noah, she shouted. Grant limped toward her immediately. Help me stabilize him. The wounded SEAL dropped beside them despite his ruined leg. Mercer and Brooks secured the remaining contractors while federal agents swept the rooftop. Everything blurred together beneath flashing lights and sirens. Then a new helicopter landed. Bigger, darker, government markings. The side door opened. General Marcus Holloway stepped into the storm. Director of Joint Operations, one of the most powerful military officials in America. Olivia recognized him instantly. So did Victor Kane. And for the first time all night, Kane looked nervous. General Holloway walked directly toward Olivia, ignored everyone else. His eyes immediately assessed Hale's wound. Will he survive? Olivia never looked up. Not unless someone gets me a thoracic kit right now. Holloway turned instantly. Medical team move. Combat medics rushed forward from the helicopter. Olivia grabbed the equipment before they fully unpacked it. Needle decompression first, chest seal second, move. The medics obeyed automatically. Even exhausted and covered in blood, Olivia Bennett sounded impossible to disobey. General Holloway watched her work silently. Precise, fast, unshaken despite everything. Meanwhile, federal agents dragged Victor Kane toward restraints. Kane suddenly laughed softly. Holloway turned toward him. What's funny? Kane smiled despite the rifles aimed at his head. You think arrests solve this? Holloway's expression stayed cold. You sold American weapons to insurgents. No, Kane corrected calmly. We maintained balance. Several agents exchanged disgusted looks. Kane continued, you know what happens when wars end? Budgets collapse, contractors disappear, politicians lose leverage. General Holloway stepped closer. So you funded both sides? Kane shrugged slightly. That's how modern wars work. Olivia finally looked up. Rain dripped from her hair while blood covered her hands. No, she said quietly. That's how cowards work. Victor Kane met her eyes, and yet you survived because of the same system. Olivia's jaw tightened. I survived despite it. Medical helicopters began evacuating wounded personnel from the burning base. Federal task forces secured every surviving contractor. News cameras continued circling overhead, broadcasting live images nationwide. America watched everything now. The flames, the arrests, the soldiers bleeding beneath floodlights, and Olivia Bennett kneeling beside Lieutenant Hale while refusing to let another man die. Inside Washington, panic exploded across intelligence offices and defense committees. Phones rang endlessly. Emergency meetings formed instantly. Stock prices crashed before sunrise. Names from Olivia's uploaded files spread across federal agencies like wildfire. Executives disappeared. Lawyers vanished. Private servers wiped themselves remotely. Too late. Thousands already copied the files. Nothing stayed buried anymore. Back on the rooftop, Hale suddenly coughed violently. Fresh blood spilled across Olivia's gloves. She froze. Lung collapse worsening. Damn it. Olivia, Hale whispered weakly. No, you can't save everybody. She stared at him fiercely. Yes, I can. Hale smiled faintly despite the pain. You still believe that? Olivia's eyes filled briefly, not from weakness, from exhaustion deeper than physical pain. 3 days carrying wounded men through Afghanistan. One night fighting Americans on American soil. Too many bodies, too much blood. And still people kept dying in front of her. General Holloway crouched beside them. Sergeant Bennett, Olivia kept pressure against Hale's chest. What? Your uploaded files triggered automatic emergency review protocols. She looked up slowly. And Holloway's face remained grim. There are already raids happening in Louisiana, Illinois, Arizona, and Virginia. Noah Grant stared at him. The warehouses? Holloway nodded. Your coordinates were accurate. Victor Kane laughed again, this time weaker. Too late. Everyone turned toward him. Kane smiled through rain and blood. You found depots. Another helicopter thundered overhead. But not the final shipment. Olivia felt cold spread through her chest. General Holloway stepped toward Kane. What shipment? Kane looked directly at Olivia. The one she never heard completely. Olivia's face paled. No, 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 no. The cave conversations, the missing references, the timelines. One shipment remained unaccounted for. Something larger, something domestic. General Holloway grabbed Kane violently. Talk. Kane smiled. Ask your senators. Then he suddenly jerked sideways. A hidden cyanide capsule cracked between his teeth. Federal agents lunged too late. Victor Kane collapsed onto the rain-soaked rooftop, choking violently. Blood streamed from his mouth. Within seconds, he stopped moving. Dead. General Holloway cursed furiously. Olivia stared at the body, the one man who knew everything, gone. But then Hale grabbed her wrist weakly. Olivia! She leaned closer instantly. Hale's breathing rattled painfully. The hard drives. What about them? He coughed again. There was another file. Olivia froze. A hidden partition. Her pulse spiked. What file? Hale's voice dropped almost to nothing. I copied it before the upload. Olivia stared at him. General Holloway turned sharply. Hale slowly reached inside his blood-soaked vest, then pulled out a tiny encrypted flash drive. Olivia took it carefully. Hale smiled faintly. Thought you might need insurance. Then his eyes rolled back, and his body went limp beneath her hands. Rain continued falling across Fort Ashburn long after the gunfire stopped. The fires still burned, helicopters still circled, news anchors still shouted over live broadcasts. But for Olivia Bennett, the world narrowed into one terrible moment. Lieutenant Hale wasn't breathing. Move, she screamed toward the medics. Combat surgeons rushed forward immediately, while Olivia compressed Hale's chest wound with blood-soaked hands. Jeez, pulse weak, one medic shouted. Prep thoracotomy tray. General Holloway stepped aside, while emergency teams worked around him with brutal efficiency. Olivia refused to let go. The medics finally forced her backward. You're no help if you collapse, one surgeon snapped. Olivia almost fought him, almost. Then exhaustion hit her all at once. Her knees buckled. Noah Grant caught her before she hit the rooftop. You stayed awake too long, Grant muttered. Olivia barely heard him. Her eyes remained locked on Hale. Open chest compressions, blood transfusion, direct oxygen. Everything possible. Still not enough. General Holloway approached quietly. What did Kane mean about a final shipment? Olivia slowly looked at the encrypted flash drive resting in her palm. I don't know yet. Then we find out now. Inside a secured command helicopter parked beside the rooftop, federal cyber specialists immediately connected the drive to an isolated military system. The file opened slowly. Multiple encryption layers, biometric locks. Then finally, one folder appeared. Project Harbor Light. General Holloway's face darkened instantly. He recognized the name. Olivia noticed. What is Harbor Light? Holloway hesitated. That alone terrified her. Finally, he answered quietly. An abandoned Cold War continuity program. Noah Grant frowned. Continuity for what? Holloway stared at the screen. Domestic military stabilization after catastrophic attacks. Olivia felt cold spread through her stomach. Define stabilization. Holloway's jaw tightened. Martial law. Nobody spoke. The helicopter suddenly felt too small, too quiet. The cyber analyst opened another file. Maps appeared. American cities, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix. Atlanta, New Orleans. Red markers spread across ports, rail hubs, communication centers, and electrical grids. Olivia stared at the timeline displayed beneath them. 48 hours. Exactly the same number she heard in Kandahar. General Holloway whispered one word. Jesus. Another analyst spoke nervously. Sir, there's more. Financial transfers flooded the screen. Billions, private security firms, defense contractors, political action groups, and buried beneath them all. Domestic extremist organizations receiving military-grade weapons. Grant leaned closer. They planned attacks here. Holloway nodded slowly. Not foreign terrorism. Olivia finished the thought. Controlled chaos. The general looked at her. She understood now. A massive coordinated domestic attack creates fear. Fear creates emergency powers. Emergency powers create military contracts, surveillance expansion, political control. War without foreign borders. Victor Kane wasn't funding endless overseas conflicts anymore. He was preparing America itself as the next battlefield. Olivia's hands started shaking. Not from fear, from fury. All those soldiers, she whispered. All those deployments. General Holloway looked sick. They were testing logistics. The cyber analyst suddenly froze. Sir. Everyone turned. There's an active timer. The screen refreshed automatically. Countdown, 18 hours, 42 minutes. Beneath it appeared one final line. Phase 1 deployment, Port of New Orleans. Silence crushed the helicopter. Olivia stood immediately despite dizziness. Get me transport. Holloway stared at her. You're barely conscious. 18 hours. Federal teams are already mobilizing. Olivia slammed both hands against the console. And half those federal teams might still be compromised. Nobody argued. Because she was right. If Kane corrupted military supply networks for years, then Harbor Light reached far deeper than one dead contractor. General Holloway rubbed his exhausted face. Damn it, Noah Grant looked toward Olivia. You're thinking about New Orleans already? Yes. You just survived Afghanistan and a domestic firefight. Yes. You got shot yesterday. Olivia finally looked directly at him. And people will die tomorrow if nobody moves tonight. Grant exhaled slowly, the same stubbornness again, the same impossible refusal to quit. Exactly why they survived the valley. General Holloway made his decision. Fine. He turned toward the pilots. Prep immediate transport to Louisiana. Then toward Olivia. But this time, you're not going alone. Outside the helicopter, dawn slowly approached over the burning remains of Fort Ashburn. News networks already called it the largest military corruption scandal in modern American history. Congressional emergency hearings had begun before sunrise. Arrest warrants spread nationwide, but Olivia Bennett barely noticed any of it. Because somewhere beneath New Orleans, a final operation was still waiting, and Victor Kane died smiling, which meant he believed Harbor Light would continue without him. That thought terrified her more than the gunfire ever did. A medic stepped into the helicopter doorway. Sergeant Bennett? Olivia looked up. The medic hesitated before speaking. Lieutenant Hale regained a pulse. Relief hit her so hard she nearly collapsed again. The medic continued. He's critical. Surgery immediately. Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Alive, barely, but alive. Noah Grant smiled faintly. Told you. Olivia looked back toward the Harbor Light files glowing across the screen. Countdown still running, 18 hours. A hidden domestic operation, unknown weapons, unknown targets, and enemies buried somewhere inside the American system itself. General Holloway watched her carefully. You understand this changes everything? Olivia nodded slowly. No, she whispered, then looked toward the rising sun beyond the burning base. It reveals what everything already became. The military transport jet crossed the Gulf Coast beneath heavy storm clouds while Olivia Bennett studied Harbor Light files for the 5th straight hour. Nobody aboard the aircraft slept. Not the federal tactical teams, not Noah Grant, not General Holloway, and certainly not Olivia. The deeper they dug into the encrypted data, the worse everything became. Harbor Light wasn't simply a corruption network. It was infrastructure, years old, layered through defense contracts, political donors, private security firms, shipping companies, and intelligence cutouts. An invisible system feeding off fear. Every conflict generated profit. Every crisis expanded authority. Every death justified another contract. Olivia stared at photographs displayed across the secure tablet. Shipping containers, weapon manifests, port workers, American civilians unknowingly standing beside military explosives. Then another image appeared. Her stomach dropped instantly. Chemical dispersal canisters. General Holloway saw her expression. What? Olivia rotated the tablet toward him. These aren't conventional weapons. The general studied the photo carefully, then his face hardened. Radiological dispersal systems. Noah Grant looked up sharply. Dirty bombs. Holloway nodded slowly. Low yield, designed for panic, contamination, economic collapse. Olivia's pulse quickened. The New Orleans port suddenly made terrible sense. Shipping traffic, tourism, oil infrastructure, civilian density. One coordinated attack there would cripple half the Gulf economy overnight, and fear would spread nationwide, exactly what Harbor Light needed. Another analyst approached from the rear cabin. "Sir, we intercepted encrypted communications 30 minutes ago." Holloway took the tablet. His expression darkened immediately. "They know we're coming." Olivia exhaled slowly. "Of course they do." Grant frowned. "You think someone inside command leaked our movement?" Olivia looked directly at Holloway. "Sir, who authorized this aircraft?" The general hesitated. That hesitation answered enough. "Joint Command routing approved it automatically," he admitted. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, still compromised, still infected. Harbor Light remained alive inside the system. The pilot's voice crackled overhead. "Approaching New Orleans airspace, 30 minutes out." Lightning illuminated the cabin. Storms rolled over Louisiana now. Perfect cover, perfect chaos. Exactly the kind Harbor Light preferred. General Holloway gathered the tactical leaders around the central table. "We know Phase 1 targets the port district," he said firmly. "Unknown number of operatives, unknown number of devices." Olivia interrupted quietly. "They'll hit evacuation routes too." Everyone looked toward her. She leaned over the city maps. Harbor Light depends on panic. Panic needs trapped civilians. Her finger traced routes along highways leaving the city. Bridges, tunnels, transit hubs. Grant nodded slowly. "She's right." Olivia continued. "They'll create simultaneous confusion. Nobody knows where the actual threat is. Police split resources, emergency services overload." One tactical officer frowned. "How do you know that?" Olivia's eyes looked distant suddenly. "Because insurgent cells overseas used the exact same doctrine." Silence filled the aircraft. America imported its own war tactics home. General Holloway turned toward the teams. "Priority shifts immediately. We secure civilian evacuation routes first." Several officers looked uncertain. "The devices themselves mean nothing if half the city stampedes into sealed kill zones," Olivia interrupted. Nobody argued, because deep down they all knew. She understood survival better than anyone aboard. The aircraft descended through violent turbulence. Rain hammered the fuselage. New Orleans appeared below like scattered gold beneath black storm clouds. Beautiful. Unaware. Olivia stared through the window. Families still eating dinner, tourists still drinking along Bourbon Street, children sleeping. People living ordinary lives while hidden men prepared catastrophe beneath them. The thought made her chest ache. Not fear, responsibility. Captain Ethan Cole once called her expendable. Now entire cities depended on her memory. The aircraft touched down at a secured Coast Guard airfield outside New Orleans. Federal convoys already waited beneath floodlights. As Olivia stepped onto Louisiana soil, humid storm air wrapped around her instantly. Different from Afghanistan, different from Georgia, but danger smelled exactly the same everywhere. General Holloway moved quickly. "Task Force Alpha secures the port. Bravo covers bridges and evacuation arteries. Charlie with me underground." Olivia looked toward him. Underground? Holloway handed her a tablet. City infrastructure maps filled the screen. Beneath New Orleans existed miles of abandoned storm tunnels and maintenance corridors stretching under the port district, exactly where Harbor Light hid the devices. Grant whistled quietly. They built a battlefield under the city. Olivia studied the maps carefully, then froze. One tunnel route looked familiar. Not the tunnel itself. The pattern, the spacing, the choke points, military design. Her stomach tightened. These weren't modified later. Holloway looked at her. "What?" Olivia zoomed into the infrastructure overlays. These corridors were intentionally designed decades ago for containment operations. Grant frowned. You mean emergency shelters? Olivia shook her head slowly. No, then pointed toward reinforced blast doors hidden beneath civilian utility systems. These are kill corridors. The realization hit everyone simultaneously. Harbor Light wasn't created recently. It had existed in shadows for generations. Waiting, preparing, expanding quietly beneath American institutions. General Holloway's radio suddenly crackled. "Sir, emergency reports coming in from downtown." The operator sounded panicked. Multiple coordinated explosions near the riverfront. Olivia's blood ran cold. Holloway grabbed the radio. "Casualties? Unknown. Civilians flooding streets. Police overwhelmed." Another voice screamed through background static. "Jesus Christ, there's another one!" The transmission cut off. Sirens erupted across the city outside. Olivia immediately grabbed her rifle. Grant looked at her. "Where are you going?" Olivia stared toward the glowing skyline of New Orleans. "Into the tunnels." "Why?" She chambered around. "Because this isn't the attack yet." General Holloway slowly understood. The explosions above ground were distractions, just like Kandahar, just like Fort Ashburn. Harbor Light always used visible chaos to hide the real operation. Olivia looked directly at him. "The actual devices are still below the city." Lightning exploded overhead. Then all power across half the New Orleans waterfront suddenly died. Darkness swallowed the skyline, and somewhere beneath the streets, a countdown continued running. The tunnels beneath New Orleans smelled like rust, floodwater, and old secrets. Emergency lights flickered weakly along concrete walls, while distant explosions echoed through the underground corridors. Olivia Bennett moved carefully at the front of the task force, rifle raised, ranger silent beside her. Above them, the city panicked. Sirens screamed endlessly. Helicopters thundered overhead. Crowds flooded darkened streets after the waterfront blackout, exactly as Harbor Light intended. General Holloway followed Olivia through knee-deep water, while federal tactical teams secured intersections behind them. "How much time?" he asked. Olivia checked the recovered countdown timer. 47 minutes. Grant swore quietly. The tunnels stretched endlessly beneath the city like buried veins. Some corridors looked abandoned. Others looked maintained recently. Fresh boot prints, fresh electrical wiring, fresh ventilation systems. Harbor Light operated here for years unnoticed beneath one of America's busiest ports. Olivia stopped suddenly, raised a fist. Everyone froze. Ranger growled low. Movement ahead. Voices, American voices. A tactical team moved forward silently. Olivia listened carefully. One voice sounded nervous, another calm, professional. Then she heard words that made her blood freeze. "Final authorization confirmed from Washington." General Holloway heard it too. His face darkened instantly. Not rogue contractors anymore, not isolated corruption, government authorization. Olivia slowly peered around the concrete corner. 5 armed men guarded a massive reinforced blast door, military-grade equipment, radiation shielding, and beyond the partially open door, large cylindrical devices connected to timer systems. Dirty bombs. Multiple. Enough to contaminate entire districts. One of the guards suddenly turned, saw them. Everything erupted instantly. Gunfire thundered through the tunnels. Federal agents exchanged fire with Harbor Light operatives while sparks exploded from concrete walls. Olivia moved through the chaos with terrifying calm, not chasing kills, chasing the timers. One operative rushed toward the detonator controls. Ranger intercepted him mid-sprint. The man disappeared beneath snapping jaws and violent momentum. General Holloway dropped another operative with 2 precise shots. Grant limped forward, firing one-handed. The tunnel became a battlefield, American against American again. Olivia reached the bomb controls. Her heart sank. No simple shutdown, no obvious disarm sequence. The devices linked together. Kill one incorrectly and the others trigger automatically. "Olivia," Holloway shouted, "how bad?" She scanned the wiring rapidly. Military engineering, advanced, designed specifically against standard bomb disposal. Then she saw it. A familiar configuration hidden beneath newer wiring. Afghanistan, Taliban tunnel traps. Same structure, same sequencing. The people behind Harbor Light trained insurgents overseas using American systems, then reused those systems domestically. Olivia's exhausted mind suddenly understood everything. Kandahar wasn't separate from New Orleans. It was rehearsal. "General," she shouted, "these devices aren't meant to fully detonate." Holloway frowned. "What?" "They're contamination triggers, panic weapons." Another gunfight echoed deeper in the tunnel. Olivia kept working. "They don't need maximum explosion, they just need fear." The countdown reached 21 minutes. Sweat mixed with rainwater across her face. Her injured hands shook from exhaustion. Grant dropped beside her. "Tell me what you need." Olivia pointed toward secondary wiring ports. "Simultaneous disconnects. We miss timing by 1 second and everything triggers." Grant nodded. "Then let's not miss." General Holloway secured the tunnel entrance while federal teams finished the remaining Harbor Light operatives. Most fought to the death, not mercenaries anymore. Believers. That frightened Holloway more than corruption ever did. Harbor Light became ideology, power through fear, control through collapse. The countdown reached 10 minutes. Olivia worked faster. Every nerve screamed from exhaustion, her vision blurred. Not now. Not after everything. She thought about Fort Ashburn, about Lieutenant Hale fighting for life because he believed her, about Mercer, Brooks, and Grant surviving the valley, about young soldiers dying under orders from cowards hiding behind contracts. No. Not one more city. The timer hit 60 seconds. Grant looked toward her. "Ready?" Olivia took a breath, then nodded. 3. Gunfire echoed faintly behind them. 2. The tunnel lights flickered. 1. They ripped the wires simultaneously. Every timer froze. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the systems powered down. Dark screens, dead triggers, finished. Grant stared at the disabled devices, then laughed weakly. "You really are impossible." Olivia sat back against the concrete wall, completely drained. General Holloway approached slowly. "It's over." Olivia looked around the tunnel. Dead operatives, broken weapons, bombs waiting beneath an American city, then toward the darkness stretching deeper underground. "No," she whispered. Holloway frowned. "What do you mean?" Olivia's eyes looked ancient suddenly. Harbor Light existed for decades. She glanced toward the dead men around them. These people weren't the disease. Then toward the silent bombs. They were symptoms. General Holloway understood. Corruption survived because systems allowed it. Fear funded it. Silence protected it. But tonight, silence finally broke. Hours later, dawn rose slowly over New Orleans. Federal raids expanded nationwide. Arrests multiplied. Congressional leaders resigned live on television. Military tribunals formed immediately. The Harbor Light files spread across every major network on Earth. And for the first time in decades, people saw the machine clearly. 6 months later, Olivia Bennett stood quietly beside Arlington National Cemetery beneath pale winter skies. Lieutenant Hale survived. Barely. Mercer returned home. Brooks finally breathed normally again. Grant walked with a permanent limp. Ranger received a medal and slept beside Olivia every night afterward. The government offered Olivia promotions, awards, public ceremonies, interviews. She refused almost all of them, because none of it erased the dead, none of it returned the years stolen by lies. But something changed. Young soldiers started asking harder questions. Journalists stopped trusting official briefings blindly. Families demanded accountability. And somewhere deep inside, institutions built on secrecy. People finally became afraid of witnesses surviving. Olivia stood silently before a grave marker while snow drifted gently around her boots. Not all heroes returned from Harbor Light. Not all names became public. Some sacrifices remained classified forever. But she remembered them, every single one. Ranger pressed quietly against her side. Olivia looked toward the distant Washington skyline. Power still existed there. Corruption still existed there. Maybe it always would, but now the people hiding behind flags and contracts understood something important. Survivors talk. And sometimes one exhausted combat medic carrying impossible weight through hell can expose truths powerful men spent decades trying to bury. Olivia Bennett turned away from the graves beneath the cold American sky. Still scarred, still tired, still standing. And somewhere behind her, beyond snow and silence and memory, the country she nearly died saving slowly began learning how to save itself. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video.